From the high desert and the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in whatever time zone you reside in, each and every one of them covered like a blanket by this program, Coast to Coast AM, and we own the night. This night, I'm filling in, I'm Art Bell, for George Norrie, taking a well-earned vacation night tonight. That makes a 3-day weekend, and believe me, when you do a show like this, you need an occasional day off. It's quite a job. Well, all the ABs are well. Asia is, well, there's a photograph up at the top of the website. You'll see Art's webcam. You might click on that. She will be a year old on the 30th of this month, and she's walking. Oh, baby, is she walking. She never was much of a crawler. She didn't really want to crawl. She never wanted to crawl. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, she got up and walked. And that was it. She's walking. She can walk from one side of the house to the other side of the house and back again, never so much as tripping. So that's it. She just got up and walked. And she's saying dada now. Not mama yet, but dada. So she's well. Erin, my beautiful wife, well as well. That's an awful lot of well, isn't it? Listen, one other quick note before we dive in, and that is I apparently have been nominated for the second time for the Hall of Fame in Chicago, Illinois. I think that's where they have all the Hall of Fames, the Radio Hall of Fame, baseball, football, and all the rest of them, all kinds of them in Chicago, I think. I don't know why Chicago. Maybe because it's the middle of the country. Anyway, I would solicit your vote. There is a little thing on the website down at the bottom of the website. You can click on and go and vote for your favorite, and there are many good ones in there. So if you feel I deserve it, let's see. I could offer a chicken for every pot, but not at today's prices. So, if you feel I'm deserving, then cast the vote. If not, then there are other equally deserving people there. All right. Let's look quickly at the news. Senator Hillary, before I do this, I feel I should now, just on general principles, I'd like to apologize to everybody out there who might possibly have been offended by anything that my pastor said during and prior to the year I was born, 1945. So whatever he may have said that offended anybody, I apologize. Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton apologizing tonight after citing the June 1968 assassination of Robert F. Kennedy and defending her decision to keep running for the Democratic presidential nomination despite increasingly very, very long odds. She said, quote, "I regret that if my referencing the moment of trauma for our entire nation, and in particular the Kennedy family, was in any way offensive, I certainly had no intention of that whatsoever." China's deadly earthquake, and it was awful, may have saved the Beijing Olympics. Now, just a few weeks ago, International Olympic Committee President Jacques Rogge described the games as in crisis. They were being battered by pro-Tibet protests, health concerns about Beijing's noxious pollution, calls for boycotts tied to China's support for Sudan, and the May 12th earthquake changed everything. Now, why it changed everything, I don't know. I guess it has to do with whatever is capturing the news at the moment. In other words, none of that other stuff has really changed. It's just that the earthquake happened, and that now captures the headlines about China, I guess. And then there's this. What makes up the price of gas? AP. Consider the game of chicken that plays out every day across Pennsylvania's State Highway 441. In Marietta, where the road hugs the Susquehanna River, a Rutter's Farm store gas station there stands on one side, and a Sheetz gas station on the other. That's Sheetz. Kelly Bosley, who manages Rudders, doesn't even have to look across the highway to know when Sheetz changes its prices for a gallon of gas. When Sheetz raises prices, her own pumps are busy. Can't even pump enough gas. When Sheetz lowers prices, do they do that anymore? She has not a car in sight. We're going to be talking a lot about the price of gas and the economy, both a little bit tonight and a great deal next week. Gilroy, California fire crews struggled on Friday to maintain fire lines around a wildfire that chewed through centuries-old redwoods, pushed hundreds out of their homes in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Gusty winds picked up in the afternoon after heavy morning fog had given much-needed relief to the firefighters who contained more than 20% of that blaze. The winds are deadly. On a cloudless spring day, the New York Police Department helicopter soars over the city. Its sights set on the Statue of Liberty. It's a dramatic close-up of Lady Liberty's frozen gaze, which fills one of 3 flat-screen computer monitors mounted on a console. Hundreds of sightseers below are oblivious to the fact that a helicopter is peering down on them from about 1.5 miles away. Well, a lot of America's like that now. Many of us are oblivious to the changes that have taken place since the Patriot Act. People are watching, people are reading, people are listening, and we don't necessarily know about it. New York City is issuing a warning to all after an aphrodisiac has killed a man. An aphrodisiac. Health officials are warning New Yorkers stay away from an illegal aphrodisiac made from the toad venom. That's toad venom? That's right. After the product apparently killed a man, the city's Poison Control Center issued the warning Friday after receiving a hospital report that a 35-year-old man who ingested the hard brown substance had died earlier in the month. So, sex is not worth dying for. All right, we're going to take a brief break. When we get back, we'll talk about the rest of the news. Well, the rumors hot and heavy in China about why officials couldn't predict the quake, the big earthquake. When apparent natural signs were everywhere, technically, seismologists the world over say they can't accurately predict location and timing of any earthquakes, but some in China see it a bit differently. Eyewitnesses say they observed changes in water levels, and I'm sure you've heard some of this on the show, in days leading up to the quake, the abnormal animal behavior just prior to. Media reports about 10 days ahead of the quake suggested several thousand cubic meters of water disappeared within an hour in Hubei, about 350 miles east of the epicenter, but the Seismological Bureau there dismissed it. Quake mispredictions aren't without precedent. In the 1970s, in yet another area in China, the seismologists were dispatched to check out, that is to say, mysteriously falling water well levels. And those same seismologists were killed by the very quake that they wrote off, according to the Associated Press. Now, a few days prior to this week's quake, a torrent of toads, that's right, toads, overran, I believe it's Menzhou City, where thousands of people were later killed in the severe quake. The local forestry bureau did a TV interview before the disaster, claimed it was normal breeding behavior, which has people particularly angry now after the fact, those who are still alive. You can see video of it. In Wuhan, 600 miles from the epicenter, a newspaper reported zebras banging their heads against the door, elephants swinging their tusks wildly, and peacocks screeching just before the quake hit. The idea that animals can sense certain things before humans is nothing new. Though it relies primarily on observational evidence, it was studied in some of the 1970s by the U.S. Geological Survey to no avail. Similar reports of strange animal behavior preceded the 2004 tsunami. Some articles are now talking about the mandate of heaven, on which Chinese imperial dynasties traditionally drew their legitimacy. Natural disasters or mass disorder typically signaled the eclipse of that dynasty's mandate and time for a new one to step in. Obviously, the modern age is a different story, but it has been a rough year for China. As Wan Yang, a Chinese studies professor at University of Sydney, puts it, the government knows many Chinese will see the quake as a sign that things are out of balance. One wonders, even if you did take these animal behaviors quickly, whether anybody would run, whether anybody noticed and did run. Interesting to know, huh? 2020 hindsight is pretty good. In what sounds like a really low-budget horror film, voracious swarming ants, apparently arrived in Texas aboard a cargo ship, are now invading homes and yards across the Houston area, shorting out electrical boxes and messing up computers. Just what we need. The hairy, reddish-brown creatures are known as crazy raspberry ants. Yeah, hey. Crazy because they wander erratically instead of marching in regimented lines like the ones we know and, well, don't love. And Raspberry, after Tom Raspberry, an exterminator who did battle with them early on. Doesn't say how he made out. They're itty-bitty things about the size of fleas, and they're running everywhere, says Patsy Morphew of Pearland, who is constantly sweeping them off her patio, scooping them out of her pool by the cupful. There's simply thousands and thousands of them, she said. You've seen a car race? That's how they are. They're going fast, 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 and they are crazy. The ants have spread to 5 Houston area counties since they were first spotted in Texas in 2002. Maybe they'll come north. The newly recognized species is believed to have arrived in a cargo shipment through the port of Houston. Scientists are not exactly sure where the ants came from, but their cousins, commonly called crazy ants, are found in the southeast and the Caribbean. According to a Texas A&M University entomologist, at this point it would be virtually impossible to eradicate the ant because it is so widely dispersed. So I guess it's a little late. Into the grocery store of late? Prices have risen more quickly than any time in the past 20 years. In a burst of inflation at Minnesota, for example, shoppers scaling back on luxuries like chocolate and shrimp are beginning to seek out more ways to defend the family budget. High oil prices, the push for alternative fuels, and global demand for food are driving the trend. I've just started to think about using food coupons, said Tanya Reed, a Minneapolis mother and sometimes shopper, who says she's already begun shopping at supercenters and often buying store brands. Faced with an $8 a gallon organic milk. Do you drink organic milk? $8 a gallon now. And more than $2 now for a dozen large eggs. They have to be organic. Customers are changing their behavior and setting off a broad macroscopic shift in the way we feed ourselves, affecting the economy, lifestyles, diet, and food habits. Coupon use is finally growing for the first time in 16 years. Food shelf visits are up. We eat more often. We eat less steak, more chicken, take fewer trips to the grocery store, buy more store brands, and the extreme end of things, shop at so-called salvage grocery stores that stock their shelves with expired or soon-to-expire stock that's quietly pawned off by mainstream grocers. And that's only so far. I watched a pretty interesting program on CNN Sunday, I believe it was, called Out of Gas. We were warned. And we were. And the program posited the possibility that around, say, September of 2009, we'd probably be sitting at $5 or better per gallon. I think it could happen before then. And a large Category 5 hurricane would strike the Houston area, and that would quickly, and for quite some time, remove about 20% of our refining capacity in the U.S. That would drive prices probably upward toward $10 per gallon. Then they posited very soon thereafter, the terrorists who are just waiting for an opportunity of this sort would probably attack the oil fields in Saudi Arabia. That would put the price of gas out of reach of most people and would bring on a virtual meltdown of our economy. Now, I don't know that it's going to even take the kinds of things that CNN posited to occur for that meltdown to happen. And I'm concerned about us. I'm concerned about the U.S. And I'll tell you why. We're spoiled. This country has had it too good for too long. And I'm not sure, in fact, I'm fairly certain that most American citizens wouldn't have the slightest idea how to survive really tough times. I mean, yes, we made it through the Great Depression, but we were a very different people then. I wasn't around, but I've looked at it hard enough to know we were a very different people. Now, as you know, I spent some time in the Philippine Islands. And the people in the Philippines, approaching a population now of, I believe, around 90 million people or so. That's a lot of people for those islands, 90 million. 2/3 of that number survive on about $2 or less per day. Think about that. 90 million people, 2/3 of them, these are families we're talking about, surviving on $2 a day or less. And yet, they're happy. Now, that much poverty, that kind of poverty, is poverty that redefines the word as we understand it in America. We have safety nets of various sorts, food stamps and, I guess, welfare and various programs that will at least to some degree catch somebody if they're on tough times, if they have lost their job, their home. Certainly many are beginning to lose their homes. And I have great doubts about how the American people would be able to handle the kind of poverty that could come in a major economic crash. Now, let me hedge a little bit here. I'm not saying that we're right at the precipice of a major economic crash, but we may well be. This could be kind of a hiccup, but at the very least, it should serve as a warning to everybody that it could come. And if it doesn't come now, it could come next time. Everything could back away. Prices could begin to come down. Last time I looked, I think oil per barrel was, my God, it was up around $135 or something. It wasn't all that long ago, that many years ago, that oil was in the $20 per barrel range. Now, somewhere between 130, 135 barrel in there. I didn't look at the price today, but what I would say again is, and there's a warning in this, the people in the Philippines are able to survive and be happy with virtually nothing. I don't think we're prepared to do that. And I do wonder what would occur with unrest and social problems if, in fact, the world keeps heading the way it is right now. If oil prices simply continue to rise, bearing in mind that oil controls everything else, the price of everything else, the food at the store. And I know that those of you who have done the shopping lately, you know how bad it's beginning to get. Prices every week now are going up, and what you used to pay is now probably a third, anywhere between a third and about 50% higher than it was. And it could get much worse very quickly. So you tell me, if that happened here in America, how do you think people would handle it? what do you think the population would do? People who are used to having it, well, frankly, pretty well, and I'm one of them. How do you think they'd handle it? I'll just leave that thought with you. Anyway, it's going to be a fascinating night coming up in the next hour. That man that people love to hate, and some love, Major Ed Dames, a remote viewing teacher. I'm Art Bell, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Well, all right. In a moment, we're going to proceed to unscreened open lines for the balance of the hour. But first, we're going to check in with Ian Punnett. He is the man who takes care of Saturday nights around here, and get a bit of a preview of what's coming up. Ian, good evening. What's coming up?
Art, I have to say that was a fairly classic Art Bell moment to come out of ABBA and hear you again, and it just sounds great. And this was also totally classic. I went to go see the new Raiders of the Lost Ark movie tonight, right? Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I've seen the previews. Is it as good as it looks?
It was fun, but you should be getting money for this, and it should be called like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Art, because it is like so many Art Bell topics rolled into one movie. You lose track of them. How many of the classic coast-to-coast storylines run through this movie?
Well, you've seen it, not me. So
you'll be shocked. I was like, okay, we do that one, and yeah, okay, that's an Art Bell classic right there. And I mean, you'll enjoy it, but I mean, there's sort of a weird feeling of been there, done that, and I wonder what the writer of this movie was up listening to at night. Well, maybe he'll be up listening tomorrow night. Was short of the actual name himself. We will reveal who Galen Cook, who's been investigating this for a long time, believes is D.B. Cooper. He's our suspect. We've had him since Thanksgiving, and we'll tell you more about the coast-to-coast listener who was listening that night, back Thanksgiving last year, when they heard us talking about D.B. Cooper and said, "I'm sorry, but that's my father." And it led us on this path, and we'll have that son on, the coast-to-coast listener, on tomorrow night to talk about that. And the only thing we can't reveal is the actual name itself, not until Wednesday. But everything else about what D.B. Cooper did, who the real D.B. Cooper is, how he got away with it, etc., coming up tomorrow night.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does D.B. Jr. know where Dad is?
Dad is dead.
Dad is dead.
Dad is dead, which is one of the reasons why the information is being revealed.
Wow.
But he knows everything about where D.B. Cooper went, and we'll talk about what he did with the back end of his life, including at one time working for the very same FBI that was looking for him.
Holy smokes. That ought to be quite a program. Tomorrow night, huh?
Tomorrow night. And then also the McMafia, which is a whole other discussion about the way organized crime is working and working against us. And we'll talk about that tomorrow night on Coast to Coast AM. Always a pleasure, Art.
Always a pleasure, Ian. Thank you. And back in a moment with Unscreened Open Lines. Well, all right. As promised, Unscreened Open Lines. Let's rock. First-time caller line, you are on the air. Good morning. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, extinguish your radio, please, and proceed.
Oh, okay. I'm doing that as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone.
Good. What's up?
Yes. I'm first caller to Art Bell. I've been listening to the program for years, and I'm so fed up with what's going on with our country right now.
Well, which aspect do you mean? There's so much to be fed up with at the moment.
Well, I mean, we could start with the illegal immigrants, going on with taxes, going on with the tax rebate, which is a joke, and the way it's even divvied up. And with the elections going on, I'm a single female trying to make it in my own home. Sorry, I'm very, very emotional about this.
I know. I know. You're not alone, Hannah. Listen.
Everything is wrong right now, and I feel that our country is it's in the handbasket, 3/4 of the way going to hell. I mean, on Monday, when I put up my flag, I'm putting it up because my uncle that I never met was killed in World War II. And I'll put up my flag in the morning at half mass and bring it up to full mass at noon. And my brother fought in Vietnam. And it's like, what is it for? What was all of that for?
Okay, well, listen, I appreciate the call. What was it all for? That's really a good question. And one that we're still asking when it comes to a lot of the police actions that we've fought. One that we're fighting right now. Is that what it is? Is it a war or a police action? And I share her, what's the right word? A lot of us are, to some degree or another, in mourning for what we were and what we are now. And we are not what we were. We're a very different country in a very different time. And since a lot of provisions that people felt had to be put in place, the Patriot Act and other things that have changed America, a lot of people are, if they're not in tears, as that lady, they're beginning to wonder really what we currently are all about. And I share that view to a pretty great extent. I was talking a little bit about it from a financial point of view earlier, but it goes well beyond that. Anyway, not a lot of time for open lines, so let's proceed. We're going to talk a lot more about that. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Art, this is Bob from Maui, Hawaii.
Hello, Bob.
Aloha. Say, Art, it's so good to hear your voice on the radio again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a listener from, before I came here, I lived in the land of Lion, if you know where that is, up in Northview in Nevada. But anyway, what I wanted to tell you is I'm 9 years older than you, so I was born in the middle of the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember how it was to go through that. And I don't know what the people are made of today, but I think we're still Americans, and I think when it gets tough, the tough get going, and I think we'll pull through. There'll be a lot of people that'll have to learn to do things like save string. We used to do that. And then, of course, we had gas ration during the war, and I can see that coming down the pike here real soon.
Well, let me ask you this, Bob.
Sure.
And I'm pondering the same question. Do you think what's happening right now is sort of in a linear way on the way to disaster, or is it sort of going to be a bump and warning in the road and not yet?
That's exactly what I think, Art. I think it's going to be a bump in the road. I think the government has put so much liquidity in the system that when that starts showing up in about 18 months, that will be awash with money and things will look pretty good for a while. And then all of a sudden, the bottom's going to fall out. That's my thinking. But anyway, the main reason I called you, I was born in Southern California in Glendale.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me for just a minute. And I went through the Battle of Los Angeles as a child.
The Battle of Los Angeles?
Yeah, the flying saucer, or so-called flying saucer.
Yes.
And so I just thought you might be interested that I think this happened late February, early March, somewhere around there. And my parents went outside. It was about 2 in the morning, and it was all this commotion, and I was about 5.5 years old, I think. I went outside, and the air raid warden was out there. They used to wear these little steel helmets that looked something like a military helmet.
I recall that, actually. Yes.
Yeah, and anyway, up in the sky were all these what we call Klieg lights or searchlights. And it was a cloudy night, but there was like a little hole in the clouds. And we were like only maybe 5 to 10 miles from the object, whatever it was. And everybody thought it was a dirigible, because that was what the Germans and the Japanese had been working on, dirigibles, which I suppose your listeners know what they are.
Sure.
But it didn't quite look like one, you know. Anyway, they fired, I think, around 14 to 1,500 rounds of anti-aircraft for about 2 hours, and they couldn't bring it down.
Had it been a dirigible, it would have come flaming
right,
down.
Exactly,
so, yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, the worst thing that happened was some of that flak came down in the mountains, San Gabriel Mountains, and set them on fire. And some houses got on fire because of the burning debris.
Right. The Battle of Los Angeles. All right. Well, thank you very much, Bob. As a matter of fact, I recall the newspaper headlines. Anyway, east of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning to you. This is Kathleen in Houston.
Houston. Oh, yes. Hey, have you seen any of those ants I was reading about?
No, that's what I couldn't did he say the lady was from Pearland? Is that what he said?
I'd have to dig out the story here.
That's just like 15 minutes south of here, from where I am in Southwest Houston. But no, I haven't seen those little critters. I mean, I have ants, normal stuff, but not the little evil little things.
Huh. Well, look out for them.
Really, thank you. But that's what I was calling about, what he was asking about, what we're going to do if all this, hits the fan.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to give him my comments and my thoughts on that.
Sure, please do.
Thank you.
No, you may not understand. You're on the air now.
Oh, I am. Oh,
absolutely.
Oh, well,
Screened open lines. I just put you right on the air.
I had turned my radio off like you're supposed to do. Well, yes, I'm in Houston, and if I don't get eaten by the ants, I'll get blown away by a hurricane. But in the meantime, I've had some trouble the last few years, financial problems, and I just want to tell you that if it wasn't for my neighbors and my relatives and friends, I probably might not even be here very well. I think America, it's not just America, but the human beings have an inner spirit, an inner strength that we don't even know we have. And when it gets really down to the bad parts where you don't know what to do, you're sitting here with no air conditioning, no phone, no gas, no whatever, and all you have is yourself and prayer, well, that's all you have. And so when this was happening, I gave it to God, and all of a sudden these people I waved at all the time for years but had never talked to came over, hey, you need anything? Or how are you? Or somebody stopped by, hey, how are you? What's going on? And all these new friends have come up out of the woodwork, and people will pray for me I don't even know about. I mean, I think everybody has to rely on each other, whether they want to or not. And even if it's a complete stranger, go up to somebody every day and say, hey, your dress is so pretty, or you have such pretty eyes, or something like that, just to make them feel good and pass it along, because we are stronger than we think we are. And one day going through all this bad stuff, I realized God gave me this tribulation to live through so I could tell other people that we can survive whatever happens, no matter what it is. Good can come from bad, and even the worst kind of bad, if we look to each other and to God and not give up, because love is stronger than hate and fear and everything else, including ants and hurricanes.
All right. Thank you very much
so
for the call. And there's somebody who obviously thinks that she's going to make it. And perhaps I framed the question. No, I didn't. I framed it just right. She answered it in that spirit. She thinks people will be fine. I wish I could say that I joined her and had that kind of faith. But again, I feel that so many of us, and it doesn't take many in a really dire situation to truly upset the apple cart. And if you doubt that, look back through history about how many countries, or that is to say, how many leaders of various countries have been overturned in times of crisis, and how many people, or what percentage of the people it took to do that. It really doesn't. It's amazing. It doesn't take that many. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello, Art. Nice to hear your voice on the radio again. It's Bob from Los Angeles.
Good to be here.
My God, you really got my topic here. Every time you brought up oil, I have called you and told you what I'm thinking.
All right. Well, what do you think now?
Come on, Art. This is a no-brainer. Okay.
Is it?
Oh, you know what's going on. I know what's going on, and everybody else knows what's going on. Look.
Well, tell us what you think's going on.
Okay. In America, most people in the United States of America don't do anything until it's too late. They only
Right,
put up a
that's
stop
for
sign
sure.
if someone's been run over by a car. Oh, let's put up a stop sign. Little Jimmy got run over. What
That's
are we
right.
going to do? We're going to sit here until we're broke and bankrupt? Look at this. Oil is not just gas in your car. Oil is food. Everything is moved around with oil. And every single company that moves things around in their trucks, they don't pay for the oil. They increase the price on their goods, so we pay for it. So not only are we paying for the oil in our car, we're paying for the oil that transports the food to grocery stores because they're inflating the prices on everything. And all these corporations are raising their prices, and we're still staying the same. This is going to
Well, it's interesting that for the most part, the transportation you're talking about is done by trucks that run on diesel. And diesel has escalated to the point, it used to be way down, cheaper than regular gas. You'll notice diesel is now actually way above premium in price.
You got it. You know what's going on here? I've talked to a few people about the SPP, how we're trying to unite. Some people are trying to unite Canada, Mexico, and the United States with one economy to make it the euro to compete. I mean, make an Amero in order to compete with the euro.
Yes.
So what's intentionally they're doing is they're deflating the value of our dollar to match to other countries so we could blend in easily. So we're trying to devalue the dollar so it matches the peso, believe it or not, and the Canadian loon, what they call loonie, I guess. So the transition of the Amero fits perfectly. So there's that's what I heard what's going on with the deflating of our economy. But if you look back at this, I told you a long time ago this thing too as well. If you look back at 39, the crash of Wall Street, okay, what happened there was a major crash, economic crash, and that it branched off, and it basically was a pivotal point working into a global crisis. And what happened after that, we had World War II after that global economy crunch. I think that the powers that be may be planning World War III and deflating the entire global economy in order to push us into World War III. And this is how it works. Intelligence networks know this for sure. Whoever pulls out the first gun, pulls out the gun first, wins. If our CIA is deflating our economy, global economy, and stacking the deck for us to win World War III, it looks like that's what's going on because I've heard, because I worked in defense, we've got some new technology that's unbelievable that if World War III were waged right now, if Bush were to get successful and piss off Iran, we have weapons that would scare the living hell out of any other country. I'll tell you something. We've got stuff. I could probably talk about this. We've got weapons right now that you know why the United States is a superpower? Because we had a nuclear bomb. We had a bomb that defied logic. We dropped it on Japan. When we did that, the whole world bowed to the United States. We were God to the world. And now everybody has a bomb. We're not so important anymore. And it's a country counterfeiting our money by billions of dollars.
Okay, you're on a cell phone. You're beginning to break up a little bit. Are you suggesting that we've got something that would make the nuclear weapons as we know them small potatoes?
Yeah, if I'm not being stepped on. Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Yeah, we've got weapons that are so powerful that defy logic. I'm telling you, they don't blow things up anymore. The thing is that they were going to release this information to Islamic countries that say this weapon will not only will actually kill you, it will destroy your soul. What it is, it's a matter disruption weapon. It makes things disappear. It's a matter disruptor. That's what they call it, matter disruptor. Matter disruptor. I can't say the word.
I get the idea. I think I get the idea. I don't know about the destruction of souls. However, it may well be the United States has in its arsenal some sort of weapon that would, if not disrupt all matter and make things disappear, then certainly take the living souls and virtually erase them. Well, that would change the price of oil. We'll be back. Good morning, everybody. Hey, just before we get to Major Ed Dames, a couple of things. One, for those, you know, I'm a ham operator. A lot of you out there know I'm a ham operator. We've got a little website set up for ham operators. You might check it out if you're one of them. It's called EliteHams.com. That's EliteHams.com. EliteHams.com, just for ham radio operators. So if you get a chance, check it out. The next couple of months or so, I may reactivate artbell.com. I may have a reason to do that. We'll see. All right, coming up, the world's foremost remote viewing teacher Edward A. Dames, Major U.S. Army retired, is a decorated military intelligence officer and an original member of the U.S. Army Prototype Remote Viewing Training Program. Now, I have copies of the Major's military records. I've got his DD and so forth. It's all real. He really did that. He served as the Training and Operations Officer for the Defense Intelligence Agency's Psychic Intelligence Collection Unit. He currently serves as Executive Director for the Matrix Intelligence Agency, a private consulting group. The technical consultant for the feature film Suspect Zero. I thought that was quite good. A Tom Cruise, Paula Wagner production. Ed coached Sir Ben Kingsley. And, in fact, though it was short, played the role of an FBI remote viewing instructor in the movie as well. That really was quite a good movie. Coming up in a moment, Major Ed Dames. Ed Dames, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. I saw a picture of your daughter. She's beautiful.
Oh, she is a doll, Ed. As I said last hour, it's very funny. She wasn't much on crawling. She didn't like it. And so 2 or 3 weeks ago, she decided she was going to walk. And that was it.
Mind of her own.
She walked.
Like most women.
That's right. Boy, you're not kidding. Anyway, it is good to have you back. And I've got a number of emails ahead of your appearance. Now, I didn't do the show, so I don't know. But apparently you had promised to go and locate Steve Fawcett. Is that correct?
I certainly did. In fact, I did indeed promise to locate him. I drew a circle around his location and worked with the team, tried to work with the search team leader who could not believe that Steve was in the Sierra Nevadas. He just was adamant that they were in Nevada, all the way up until winter snows began.
Mm.
So when they stopped searching, my own crew, my own search team, and 2 crazy Russian pilots, the only ones crazy enough to fly in winter, because the wind speeds over the peaks in the Sierra Nevadas are about 100 miles an hour in the winter. So no pilot would fly, and they had called the search off. But it was too late to start searching the Sierra Nevadas, except for my team. So I posted some video on Coast to Coast showing our attempt to search the area in air. But my team's heads were bouncing against the cockpit, so we came to the conclusion that we're going to have to wait until this summer because it takes that long for snows to melt. We know where Stephen Fawcett is, and I will email you not only the location, pinpoint, but our actual route, our hiking route in to where he is at the 10,000-foot level.
All right, but you already put a plane in the air, huh?
We put a plane in the air when everybody, including the Air Force, stopped flying because they said it was too dangerous. We found 2 crazy Russian airline pilots who were touring the U.S., the great American West, and we talked them into dusting snow off of their 172 in Nevada and flying. They had to climb. It took them 30 minutes to get to 10,000 feet, and they had to climb to 4,000 feet above ground level. Wow. Just to protect themselves from going down the same way that Steve did. He could not have picked a worse place to die and crash. He's right almost at the 10,000-foot level, very treacherous slopes. So we're not going to be able to extract him. If you want something done right, do it yourself. That's these guys can't do it. We're going to have to do it. We can hike in and get a visual and camera angles on the crash, but we don't have the resources and the expertise to extract him. Mm-hmm. So we have to wait a little bit longer for the snow to melt, and we're in. I'll send you his actual location and our route in the Sierras.
How closely are you able to pinpoint where he is?
About the same way we do any other target. About 40 meters, about 100 feet.
Okay, well, that's very close. And so you would anticipate the weather would clear enough by about when, do you think?
No, the weather's clear now, Art. It's just the snowpack is so high.
That's what I'm saying.
This is not a trail. We actually have to walk, ridge walk.
No, I understand, but eventually the snowpack is going to clear, right?
I'm sorry?
Eventually the snowpack will clear.
Yes, we think we have a crack at it in mid-June. Again, also the routes are planned and the team's ready to go. We just have to wait for a little bit more snow to melt. He was covered with snow. that the winter set right in when they had searched entire Nevada. We told the search team and coast-to-coast audience he's not in Nevada. 4 days after he disappeared, we said the man is dead. Unfortunately, he died on the joyride over the Sierra Nevadas, and we put a big red circle around his general location, and then in the last few months we pinpointed it and planned our route in. So I'll keep you posted.
Okay. All right. I know that you've got the next a terrorist target marked, and it's in fact on the website right now. I want to talk a little bit about what you see as a upcoming global pandemic and a food crisis. Now, they began rationing rice in California not very long ago. In the Philippines, my wife's home country, they are selling, the government is selling rice, and there are severe shortages beginning to appear there. And I thought it almost comical, but not comical, I guess, that in California they're rationing rice as well. There's a lot of Asians in California that buy rice, and they got scared when they heard about what was going on in Southeast Asia and began buying rice at a rate that caused Costco, I guess, and others to ration rice. Where are we going with all of this?
Well, I think if you remember about 11 years ago on the first show I did with you, I warned, based upon my military team's remote viewing work, that looking ahead, we're facing some real catastrophes. And I said on that first show with you that humans will not be able to grow food the way they have traditionally grown them because of the vicissitudes of weather. The climate changes are going to be so fast and furious that we're going to have to grow food in environmentally sealed chambers, something like habitats, which when the technology matures would become actual habitats for humans too, because the climate changes would be so drastic.
You did say all that. People just love to clobber you on things that you got wrong, and they quickly forget those things you got right. You talked about some sort of, what was it, Ed? It was a fungus, I believe.
Yeah, which is now we've identified as UG99. So what remote viewing can do is look way over the horizon as an over-the-horizon radar. Anybody can be taught to do this, but this is our job, our profession. So I was telling you, the sky is going to fall. That was 10 years ago, and now the chickens, not to mix metaphors too much, but the chickens have come home to roost. We are going to face some drastic food shortages, of course. But that's not just the only thing we're facing in terms of a confluence of events. And I've said many times that in 1994, for instance, and I talked about this on my second show with you about 11 years ago, there's going to be a global economic collapse. Now, everybody laughed that off because 11 years ago, things were hunky-dory as far as the economy was concerned. In fact, we were doing quite well. Who would have imagined that not only would the U.S. go bankrupt, which is what I said, but it would be the beginning of a global economic collapse. In fact, U.S. economic conditions today are only going to get worse. They don't plan on a bright future. The quality of life for all of us, food and money-wise, is going to go downhill and keep going down for reasons I can outline later and have outlined on earlier shows. But the coup de grace to the economy and the thing that will really facilitate a global economic collapse, because a U.S. economy biting the bullet and going down can only result in a global recession. But what will turn that recession into a global economic collapse, as I've been predicting for the last 10 years, will be disease. Because that's what we were seeing 14 years ago when an investment group asked us to look into the future at the economy. We were seeing rotting corpses all over the planet when we were actually focusing upon the global economy. Let me back up for a moment. The way we work in remote viewing, think of your unconscious as a web browser. You've got to turn your attention to a specific web page, a URL. That's why we could not, as remote viewers, predict the 9/11 attack. We made sure that this time we looked in the direction of the next terrorist attack, because we're not psychics. We don't just stick a psychic antenna out there and see which way the winds are blowing. We've got to be very specific, very rigorous.
Let me also go back with you for just a moment, Ed. Let's back up a little bit. You were, when you were in the military in the CIA program, you were a remote viewing teacher.
I was an operations officer and the remote and the training officer. I was the only one to wear both those hats.
Mm-hmm. But at that time, you were not really an active remote viewer in the program.
Oh, yes, I was. I was trained by Ingo Swann as part of the original prototype team. And you can see my original work on the web. It's there in archive form. The CIA has released it.
Okay, so you were remote viewing.
So I was trained to be one. Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess you would have to be to train others.
I was just going to say that.
But I suppose to be a good teacher, you might not necessarily have to be possessing the same sort of talent that, say, Ingo Swann had.
No, Ingo Swann was he was the original. The father of remote viewing was just that.
He's still here.
He was born very, very gifted. Yes.
Yeah. So you were really engaged, though, more in teaching at that point than you were in remote viewing.
Teaching and operations. When we really had serious under pressure to get a lot of data fast, for instance, in the prisoner of war issue, when Ross Perot came to town and demanded of the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, what we really had in terms of prisoners of war, I had to get involved as a viewer, too, because our resources were limited, and I needed to augment the team.
Even with all of the terrible economic news that we're trying to digest and live through right now, you think that disease is going to be more of a problem?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in the H5N1, the bird flu has already mutated. The polymorphs are in place to make that a global influenza pandemic. The UK alone is forecasting, if this becomes a pandemic, and us viewers knew as early as 14 years ago that it would, the UK alone is looking at 650,000 deaths, 650,000 people dead. And in the rest of the world is not equipped to handle just the medical treatment alone for people who are just sick with influenza, not to mention how are you going to dispose of all those bodies.
All right. As usual, I obviously want to ask you about a timeline, and you're going to have the most trouble with that.
No, this time I won't, because it's obvious. I've been watching the H5N1 mutate and spread worldwide. We cannot stop this. It's here already. We're on the cusp of this particular pandemic right now. And the reason that I'm saying that is because all this time, when we looked and focused upon this global economic collapse, it has been concurrent with this tremendously devastating pandemic. So if you look at SARS, for instance, which ravaged a couple of cities in China, the Chinese handled that epidemic by quarantining 2 cities. They handled it.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot quarantine this pandemic, this influenza that is an offshoot of bird flu, because there's no way to quarantine against migratory birds, and this is the spring migration right now. And
well, the big question, Ed, now H5N1 thus far has been people who have been handling birds, people who have been eating birds. In other words, it's been that kind of contact and not merged as of yet that we know of with some sort of flu to make it airborne and then obviously
contagious. Human
horribly contagious, yes.
Yeah, we're right there, Art. We're right there. In fact, there are a few examples that are very, very suspect right now. And when this happens, it will spread probably in 3 months' time worldwide. I'm telling you.
I understand. It's a possibility.
It's really a serious thing.
Yeah, I've interviewed some experts on H5N1, and they, too, continue to expect it to occur. Now, there have been several years now that have gone by and it hasn't happened yet.
We don't expect it as remote viewers. Remote viewers see it already in existence. We're looking over the horizon. Mind is outside of time. If you think of time as a simple model as the fourth dimension, then time is then mind looks down on this broad panoply of events that stretch from the past to the future in terms of our present reference point. It's looking at people, at corpses in streets worldwide, and lime pits and mass graves, concurrent with the global economic collapse.
Concurrent with.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the timing, Ed, you would expect this to begin in a serious way, airborne?
I'd say next year at the latest, or at the latest. Yeah, we're looking at kill shot events, the sun going berserk, probably at the top of this is solar cycle 24. That's the end game as far as predictions go, and we're the top of the cycle is about 2011.
Actually, they just saw an article that said they believe there's a 1-year delay, and they look for the top around 2012 now.
1 or 2 years, it doesn't make any difference. What we're seeing as the grand finale is what I've called so often the kill shot, and that is we'll have some wars in between. We'll have some wars, but wars. Everybody will be too tired to fight a war. The priorities will be changed around the time that this series of solar flares begins, because people will have to go home and take care of their families.
A lot of people are getting tired of as much war as we've got going on right now, Ed.
I had said years ago that World War III really started many, many years ago, when it's a slow burn. World War III is a slow burn.
A slow burn. Well, traditionally, we've thought of World War III as an exchange of strategic nuclear weapons.
That's not going to happen. We've never seen it as viewers, and I have other reasons to believe it's not going to happen.
Then you view a slow burn that you called World War III as what?
That's already started. Just a series of what is going on now. There's wars all over the planet. Wars that we've got the Mideast. That's not going to go away. Africa is not going to go away. World War III started about 5 years ago. It just started slowly. It's like a fuse that's burning that never really reaches an explosive point, but it just keeps burning nevertheless. I talked about this on your show about 5 years ago. World War III had already started. We think, and right now we're in the middle of several wars.
Is World War III a sort of a continued terrorism? Is that the war we're in now?
It isn't terrorism by itself. It's decisions on the part of policymakers and leaders of countries to engage in such.
All right. Major Ed Dames is my guest, and he's talking about World War III, H5N1, and a number of delightful subjects. Be right back. Hello, everybody. I'm being asked to repeat it, so I will do that. We've set up kind of a little website for amateur radio operators, ham operators. If you are one of those, it's going to require your call letters. So we've got a chat site in there as the main attraction, and you're going to have to register. Go to the webmaster and register and give your call letters and that sort of thing. But it is elitehams.com. That's ELITEHAMS.com. And would love to have you if you're a ham operator. In the meantime, we're in the middle of some rather grim news, grim predictions by Ed Dames. And if you have been listening for a number of years, you know that a number of the predictions that Ed made are in the process, either have come true or are in the process of coming true before your very eyes right now. We'll be right back. Reading something just sent to me, fast blasted to me, URL, the match between the Fujian H5N1 sequences in Primorsky, Russia, with multiple sequences from northern Japan, and the record outbreak in South Korea leaves little doubt that a global expansion of Fujian clade 2.3 sequences, whatever that means, has begun H5N1 has never been reported in northern Japan or southeastern Russia, and prior outbreaks in South Korea and Japan have been at the end of the year when birds are migrating into the region. The current outbreaks are in the spring when birds are migrating out of the region. The tracks of outbreaks, and it's got a satellite map, signal movement to the north and will likely migrate H5N1 into new regions. Ed?
If I were an epidemiologist and I'm on your show right now, I would just simply say, be afraid, be very afraid, because that's the long and the short of it. It's going to happen. Many, many, many people will die. The pandemic, the 1918 pandemic, this may equal that in terms of its devastation. You're talking 30, 40 million people. And now we have more people on the planet, and it's going to be devastating. And that's why when we, in 1994, when we looked ahead at this global economic collapse, we were seeing dead people all over the place. What does that have to do with the global economic collapse? And what unconscious, what the Matrix was trying to tell us was, hey, you need to look at this. It's concurrent.
Unless it's famine, Ed, unless people are virtually starving to death.
Well, if people are hungry, that depresses their immune system, and any disease will take them down faster, the same way as plants. Plant diseases, let's not forget, in terms of phytopathology and plant disease, plants, the immune system of many of our food crops are being suppressed now because of climate. Mm-hmm. And they're susceptible to fungi and some hard-hitting other plant diseases as well. So we're in for Mr. Toad's wild ride here. And as you were saying earlier in the show, I caught the first hour. It is going to be very difficult for us spoiled Americans to countenance this. I live now on the Russian border in Ukraine. I have a U.S. headquarters in Sacramento. That's where I'm at now. But I live in Ukraine. And when the Soviet Union collapsed there, it was not much of anything to anyone there, because they would go to the stores and it would be business as usual. You were lucky to find anything in the stores, especially something that you wanted. Mm. And when the economy collapsed, people lived out of the gardens anyway, so what the heck? But in the United States, we are spoiled.
We are, and I have great doubts about how many will react to very, very difficult times. We simply have not had them.
No, I think earlier one of the callers that you had, I think she lived in a rural area of America. There will be many rural areas, small areas, and where people already watch out for each other, especially farming communities and ranching communities. But in the cities, whoa. As remote viewers, we know we're already prepared to know where to go, and it's not in the cities.
Well, Ed, I just read this article that indicated Russia seems to be a difficult place for H5N1 right now.
Oh, it is indeed, but so is everywhere. Well, everywhere else, everywhere. It's not, there's no escape from that. It might as well be a Michael Crichton novel, Andromeda Strain, or worse, because you're not going to be able to run from this.
An awful lot of the predictions you made many years ago now that involved hunger, involved disease,
gold,
that do appear to be coming true now. For a lot of years, you were criticized for those because I think, Ed, when you say something, people expect it the next day or the next week or the next month or a year at the most, and when it doesn't happen, well, they're all over you.
Yeah, I'm not in the prediction business anymore because it's all here now. So we all of our operations now are just real-time intelligence, and we have a couple of fun ones left. For instance, I have not forgotten my promise to you to bring you some gold, and we have field teams now that are in our intelligence, our remote viewing intelligence, and our precision work directs our field teams to exposed gold targets. So you'll be happy to know that.
I was going to mention the gold, Ed.
I'm sorry?
I was going to mention the gold.
Oh, the gold. I predicted gold, if you remember, in about 7 or 8 years ago on your show, would go to $2,000 an ounce. That was laughable at the time, of course, but it's not laughable anymore.
I recall that as well.
Mm-hmm. But just so you know.
So you're going to get me the gold before the H5N1 gets me?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, certainly your promise is it's going to be more expensive, so you should do it soon.
Yeah, but it's free for us. For remote viewers, when you go out in the field, and it's all over the place. You just have to find it. As remote viewers, particularly with our precision tools, we can walk up to exposed gold targets, gold veins and quartz veins, or old jars of coins or stagecoach robberies and things like that. So it's free for us. We just have to do the remote viewing work. And anybody that learns how to do remote viewing, same thing with them.
I just received a new DVD, Viewing the Future, Grim Predictions by Major Ed Dames, right?
Yeah, that's in fact, you know what we're going to do with that? Anyone who purchases the my DVDs to teach remote viewing, Learn RV DVDs, or attends one of my workshops, and there's only 2 workshops this year, September and October, we're going to just give that to them because I think it's important for them to know.
You know, the students that have called the show, and there have been quite a number in the shows we've done, have always been quite happy with what they went through when they, were students of yours. So give you credit there too. On this DVD in the back, it says a devastating terrorist attack, the month and location for an unprecedented earthquake, and the recent rise of new crop-killing fungus. Now, obviously, that is a direct hit for you, isn't it?
They are. We could have many direct hits, Art, but
I'm talking about
not
the
what
fungus.
I'm in the business to do. I'm in the business to try to I have to avoid the bullets because lots of people want to shoot the messenger. I have a neat story about Ford Aerospace and that, if you want to hear it.
Sure.
But we're in the intelligence gathering business, and information can save lives. The Ford Aerospace one is funny. In 1991, I was called in by the head of the research division of Ford Aerospace, Phil Carver, a very good friend of the vice president at the time, Dan Quayle. And he opened the books for Ford, and he said, look, the U.S. is thinking about going in to and invading Iraq. This was Desert Shield, the first war in the Gulf.
Right.
And he said, that's going to really raise the price of oil. And for every barrel, every $1 that a barrel of oil goes up, he said, Mr. Carver said, it will cost Ford a million sales, 1 million units of sale. We won't be able to, that for every dollar.
Wow.
He said, so we need for you to look into the future, use your crystal ball, remote viewing techniques. He didn't care how we did it. He just wanted us to tell him whether or not there was going to be a war and so they could plan for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how sensitive the automobile industry is to the price of oil.
Well, why don't you talk to me a little bit about the price of oil? I remember just a very few years ago, Ed, it was in the $20 range per barrel. And it got very close to $135 a barrel just a day or two ago. So these are beginning, it's beginning to reach levels that are going to cause a meltdown if something doesn't change. What do you know about the price of oil and the availability of oil and whether we've reached peak oil? I mean, what can you tell us about this?
Actually, I don't know. I'm not an expert in there, and I have not used any of our techniques and methods to research it, except we assumed that the problem was insoluble, and so we looked for a solution. So we turned our attention to look for a solution to the oil problem, and what we found was algae, ocean-grown algae, which is also a great food source. Now, I know that you would not like the idea of, no matter how nutritious it is, of eating algae and chlorella and earthworms for the protein.
No.
But it will not only keep you alive, it will keep you healthy.
Algae and earthworms.
Algae happens to be a great source of it hasn't been exploited yet, but it happens to be a great source of petrochemicals and food for humans. A very good source. But
you can't put algae and earthworms in your gas tank, or at least you probably shouldn't.
You pull out the oils from the algae. Algae has some species of algae have 50% of their body biomass in oil, in oils. Okay, that's a lot. So that technology, that's the kind of thing I was talking about 11 years ago. Then we needed to mature the technologies to avoid things like this. We also needed stable habitats for food. Well, the ocean is a perfectly stable habitat.
What about Brazil? They're growing sugar cane, and apparently it converts quite readily. A high percentage of it can be converted to fuel, and they're not even importing any oil.
No, I understand. It's a matter of leadership, national leadership. That it's our leadership that has to make those decisions and direct us. And right now, I'm not sure there's anybody at the helm at all.
Mm. Any insights on leadership? That is to say, the next leadership we can look forward to?
I haven't. I've just got my hands full with this terrorist stuff, including nuclear terrorism things.
All right, let's turn our attention for a moment then to your current prediction. Right on the front of the website, Coast to Coast AM, there is the new terrorist target, and you believe it's going to be the Citigroup Center in New York City.
I do indeed, yes. We've spent 6 months on this, looking in the direct. I don't want to be chastised again for not predicting a 9/11. In spite of all of the explanations I've given people about how we work as remote viewers, they still don't understand that we can't see something coming unless we look that way. So this time we did look that way being the next major terrorist attack on the U.S. mainland. We're also looking at the most significant current nuclear terrorism threat worldwide, not just U.S. mainland. So we're monitoring that as well too. We're watching a particular scenario. Mm-hmm. This one was very, very difficult. This particular target. We knew what the target was, but we didn't understand the attack mechanism until just recently. And now we know that it's not another airplane or something or a missile. It's a fuel-air explosive, a very, very, very ingenious, very sophisticated attack mechanism that's being planned. I'm sure you're familiar with fuel-air explosives, where you release a fuel into the air, you let it reach a certain stoichiometry, and then you ignite it.
All right.
The chemistry of that kind of explosion is very different than a regular high explosive that delivers a punch. But this particular target is a perfect target in terms of a terrorist attack. It's unique on the New York skyline. It's a beautiful building, but it has major, major structural flaws. It was flawed to begin with. They had to try to compensate with the flaw. It's structurally unsound to begin with, and they had to try to compensate for that. They did everything between put new welded plates on the joints, and in the end they put it was the first building in the United States that has a tuned mass damper on the top, a huge, humongous mechanical device that compensates for the swaying and the stresses on the building.
Will it be Al-Qaeda again?
We don't know yet, and even if it were, I cannot tell you, because we'll be working with the FBI on that. I can't talk about the individuals, because what we're doing now is locating them.
Okay.
And I won't be able to talk about that publicly. I'll be sitting down with the FBI folks. And
a timeline?
There's no timeline, because we're trying to interdict the event. We don't want the event to happen. So we're hoping there's no time. What we're seeing now is a probable future, that this attack is going to happen at this particular point on Earth, and this structure, this specific structure. What we're attempting to do is interdict that and make it far less probable, if you will.
So then with that, you're suggesting that nothing is locked in stone, right?
I'm suggesting that things can have probabilities. For instance, earthquakes and big wars, they're highly probable, especially when you look at geophysics. Those kinds of things are not changed and changeable by human decisions normally. They're going to happen and can be predicted way out.
But human actions can be interdicted?
Yes. An event that deals with human decisions where only a small number of humans are involved, those probabilities can shift. Those can be changed. For instance, your own life. If I were to tell you as a remote viewer, or I were to teach you remote viewing, and you were to remote view, let's say, your future, and all of a sudden you realized you had something like, God forbid, pancreatic cancer, and you did not know that, then you could interdict your fate. You might not live to reach your destiny, because the pancreatic cancer would interrupt that and that would be your fate. But now you have a choice about whether or not to do something about it.
Sure.
And remote viewing can be used to optimize a treatment and a cure as well.
So it's got quite a bit of application in medicine.
Oh, tremendous. We've saved many lives in our careers as professional remote viewers, many. I've taught two of the world's leading doctors. They were my students. The world's leading orthopedic surgeon and the world's leading ear doctor were students of mine. And in class, I tell them, here's what I want you to do, Doc. I want you to bring me as a practicum your most intractable case in your history, the ones that you could not diagnose or cure. And what we do is use that as a practicum in remote viewing to show what could have been done with the patient or what can be done if the patient is still alive.
You had tend not to highlight your successes. It's very hard to get you to talk about your successes. And as a result of that, I think people tend to focus, and they do that anyway, on those failures you've had.
I just don't like bragging. I never have like that.
I know, but for your own, I don't know, for your own good, Ed, you really should occasionally focus on the successes you've had. And
you know, my business managers tell me that this DVD,
well, they're right.
The Grim Futures DVD that they put out, they had to twist my arm very badly over long periods of time to do that, because for that reason. It's just a personality thing. I just don't like to really. It's called bragging, you know. I don't like to do that.
Well, it may be called bragging, but it's also called good business sense. So the people that are advising you are correct. I mean, people do tend to focus on, particularly if you're saying things that upset people. You said it yourself, they shoot the messenger, Ed.
Oh, they do. Yeah, the 17th floor at Dearborn, Michigan, we did another contract for Ford Aerospace. They were looking at hydrogen-based automobile power plants. They wanted to be the first ones to build a hydrogen-based automobile power plant. This was way back in '91. So I come back with all of the remote viewing work, the corporate remote viewing work. I said, hey, here's this new hydrogen engine that's going to be in a power in a car in the future, but you're not going to build it. That did not go over well on the 17th floor of Dearborn, Michigan. Not well at all. I said, the Japanese company is going to beat you to it. But you get what you ask for.
This is the second time around for that sort of thing. All right. When we get back with Major Ed Dames, I want to talk a little bit about the weather. It's been, to say the least, very erratic. I'm Art Bell. Here I am, and I made a big goof, I think. My producer sent me a note indicating that I said next week I was going to be talking about the economy. Well, it's not next week. It's apparently not until June 29th. So by then we may, unfortunately, have a great deal more to talk about the economy than we would be talking about next week. It's moving awfully fast. Contractually, I think I've got about 4 more shows to do following this one, and that'll be about it. So June 29th, we'll have a very, very serious talk about the economy. In a moment, Ed Dames right back. We'll talk about the weather. This also is of some interest. Listen to this. St. Petersburg, Russia, Reuters news. Russian Communist Party members condemned the new Indiana Jones film on Friday as crude anti-Soviet propaganda that distorts history and called for it to be banned from Russian screens. Indiana Jones in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, as you know, stars Harrison Ford as an archaeologist in 1957, competing with a evil KGB agent. I guess they don't like that. What galls us, they say, is how together with America we defeated Hitler, how we sympathized when bin Laden hit them. But they go ahead and scare kids with communists. These people have no shame, said Peter Perevov, a Communist Party member in Russia's second city of St. Petersburg. So they're going to try and ban Indiana Jones. Ed Dames, normally when you discuss the weather, it's pretty boring. When anybody does that, it's pretty boring. But, you know, recently, I think this year, they've clocked more tornadoes by percentage than any year in history. There was a terrible one, of course. Well, actually, there were terrible ones across the Midwest Plains. We just had one in the Denver area. There was one the other day in California. The weather is getting really bad. really weird, really unpredictable.
Well, let me tell you my take on this based upon about 15 years of remote viewing the planet and geophysics, and the linkage between the sun and the Earth. The Earth's ozone layer took about 2.5 billion years to form, according to scientists. And life on Earth was really not possible except for large green algae and what was the seas, primordial seas on Earth, until that ozone layer formed, because it was required to block the very short ultraviolet rays of the sun, very energetic photons of light, which can destroy cells. It hits them like a cannonball.
Mm-hmm.
So when the ozone layer formed, all of a sudden, all kinds of life could pop forth on the planet. But what scientists don't see now, what they don't realize, is that the ozone hole on the southern pole is not just ebbing, and it's not just waxing and waning, larger and smaller as the case may be, but the entire ozone layer on Earth is metastasizing. It's beginning to look like Swiss cheese, and scientists do not know this. Remote viewers do. We sketch this and see it happening. That's the reason that a lot of the weather changes we feel are happening right now. You might have seen the reports today where, much to the shock of Canadian scientists, the North Pole is cracking apart. It's splitting apart. Okay. We don't know that the ozone layer is metastasizing and is being destroyed. But one of the harbingers, just like the canary in the coal mine, the key harbinger for us as remote viewers, why we started to look at this, was colony collapse disorder, bees dying worldwide.
Yes.
Okay, this started because you actually asked me a question once about 8 years ago. Why are the flowers changing color in New Zealand? And I was curious about that too, but you asked me to look at that, and we did. The flowers were changing color to attract bees, because what was happening is the bees could no longer find the flowers, and the flowers needed to be pollinated.
Really?
Yeah. And see, a generic honeybee, for instance, has about 5 different spectral windows in their eye, 5 different ones. 3 of them are visual and 2 are ultraviolet. The 2 ultraviolet windows that they have, the perceptors in their eyes, are used to find flowers and then to find the center of the flower.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do that anymore because it's too bright. They're being blinded, and because we can't sell them sunglasses, they can't see the flowers, and when they do land on one, they spend so much energy trying to see the pistil, the center of the flower, that essentially they're starving to death. The colony collapse disorder is starvation. The bees are starving.
Where are the bodies? One would imagine
they can't make it back to the hive. They can't see anymore to navigate, Art. They leave the hive and they can't get back.
Where are the little bee bodies? It's what's puzzling the scientists. We can't find all these dead bees laying around.
Because they're eaten by ants and birds. That's a really nice thing. When I mean, the bodies aren't in the hives. They're out dispersed all over a bee body over acres of land is pretty hard to find. I don't care how many millions of bees you have.
True.
They're going to be eaten by birds and other insects. But essentially they're starving because they've been blinded.
So you're saying the ozone layer, and they are watching it fairly carefully, Ed. Certainly we know about the hole that does get larger and smaller.
But Art, what I'm saying is they're only watching the hole. They're not realizing, atmospheric scientists are not realizing that the ozone layer is not just thinning in the southern pole. It's thinning worldwide. In fact, if you sketch it as a remote viewer, you're sketching something that looks like Swiss cheese.
Really? Yes, I've heard there was I think 3 to 5% depletion across North America, but they don't say in what way. I'm not really familiar with the. So you're saying that it's something the scientists have not measured accurately?
They're not aware of. the only artifact, one of the consequences of that, are skin cancers. In the last 6 or 7 years, skin cancers in North America have gone through the roof. That's not because the sun is any stronger. It's because the ozone layer is thinner and now has holes in it.
Okay, and do you go along with the aerosols as having been the problem?
I don't know, Art. I honestly don't know. I haven't looked at the cause of the demise of the ozone layer. I haven't remote viewed that. Remote viewing is direct knowledge. If we did that and assembled our work, we could come to a conclusion. But I have not done that.
And with the weather, I mean, where's this all going? It's obviously becoming considerably more. We've had a very violent spring going into summer here in North America. Very violent.
Well, the problem that I see, the key problem, and I've talked about this to you for the last 11 years, is food. The climate, because of the vicissitudes of weather, we are simply not going to be able to raise crops like we used to do. And that's the problem right there. Food shortages already because of population densities and skyrocketing prices are causing food riots in Egypt and other places, as you know.
So algae and earthworms, right?
Algae and earthworms, right. The earthworms will give you the protein, and the chlorella will give you all the minerals that you need, and you'll be fine. Healthy, too.
I've got to say, you've been saying the same thing for years and years and years, and it's every bit as distasteful as the first time I heard it.
No pun intended. Well, I mean, in my business, my remote viewers, my students, and my staff, we're concerned about fiscal survival. That's one of the reasons we put out a DVD for our advanced students on how to read the markets. I don't feel guilty about this because you can't take care of other people unless you take care of yourself, and our families are going to have to come first. But we put this on DVD so the other remote viewers can learn how to watch the markets and know exactly what's happening. So it's a combat multiplier, real edge. But economic survival in the times ahead is one thing. Beyond that, it's just survival. And people need to know that life on Earth as we knew it, it's not just quality of life, but just survival alone is going to be a problem in the out years, being 5, 6, 7 years from now. So we can party down. We have time to party down, you and I.
But our children, Ed?
Our children, our grandchildren, are going to pay a heavy price for us partying down. Actually, we need to protect them, and it takes knowledge to do that and awareness. We cannot stick our head in the sand anymore about the future. It's going to be grim. It is going to be grim. It's going to be grim sooner than we think. If we can survive a global pandemic, an influenza pandemic, and that's one thing. That's a good thing. But we're still going to have to realize that these very, very strong solar flares are around the corner. They're going to shut down power grids. It's going to take out our satellites, no cell phones, no internet for a while. Ham radio operators are the way to go, especially if you have tubes.
Well, not too many people have tubes anymore.
No, I know.
The warm glow
we don't have to worry about
gone.
EMP. I'm just saying that it's going to be ham radio that people are going to have to depend upon for long periods of time.
I hope people are listening to this. Ham radio could use the influx, no doubt about it. So the next 5 or 6 years are survivable. Beyond that, it's going to be survival that's going to get you through, and only that. And do you have any specific recommendations? I mean, I remember you were talking about living underground for a while in Hawaii. Remember that?
Yeah, we have remote viewers know that there are enclaves and places your unconscious is your best friend. Your unconscious is the one that says, hey, this so-and-so is going to call you in the next few minutes, or this little insight about, don't get on that plane tomorrow, Art, that kind of thing. It keeps you alive. It's your best friend. But in our modern age, we pay short shrift to that, whereas if you were an Aboriginal in the outback in Australia, you would depend on it to save your life. Shelter, food, water, that's it. But we don't need to worry about shelter, food, and water as modern day 21st century Americans. That's all a non-issue, right? Well, what I'm saying is that as a remote viewer, you take that unconscious and you give it a voice, and you learn the syntax and grammar for how it communicates effectively to you, so that you do know where water is, and you do know how to treat your wife if she's sick or something else like that. Because the structured technique allows unconscious to show you the way.
And
that's what we teach.
Back when I wrote The Quickening, that came kind of from my unconscious. It flowed to my conscious state, I guess. But my worries today are fully up in my conscious state. I'm looking around at what's going on, and it's scaring the hell out of me.
Okay, Art, as far as you're concerned, and here's the deal. I know where you do you still live in Nevada?
I do.
Okay. We in order to have any quality of life in the out years, we need to be around people, like-minded people who take care of each other. This bunker mentality is not going to get it. Sooner or later, you're going to need to you're going to need dental work. You're going to need a doctor. You're going to need somebody to help you. You need other people, and it has to be people to take care of each other. It can't be every man for himself or the bunker mentality. So you need to be in a community where people take care of each other, and there's water and there's food. And that's the kind of enclaves that your unconscious points you to, those kinds of places. If you have stocks of water and food, that's one thing. But how long will they last? That's another. And how many zombies are going to be at your gate wanting the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's a difficult thing. And also, we as remote viewers, when we find our particular sanctuaries, and you need to know where they are now, so that you don't have to think about it when the stuff hits the fan. You need to know where they are and be comfortable with that place. Well, if you are preparing a place that's comfortable, let's call it a sanctuary, for lack of a better term, then you also have to prepare room and resources for your loved ones, because they're going to think you're nuts. Well, people think I'm nuts. I'm talking about this kind of stuff, and I'm saying I know where to go, and I know where I'm digging in. But I also have to make room for my loved ones and my friends, because those folks will say, hey, okay, Ed, whatever you say, and go about their busy jobs and drive their classy cars and things like that in Hollywood. Those folks are going to look up in the sky one day and say, oh, my God, Ed was right. What are we going to do now? And then what they're going to do is come to me, and I'm going to take care of them. Because what kind of quality of life would you have if you and your immediate family survived, but all of your in-laws, mother-in-law notwithstanding, are still out there in the desert?
Well, as a general rule, Ed, would you rather be in the cities or out, as it were?
Cities are not going to work. The cities are the worst place. You can't. The survival in the cities is going to be very, very difficult indeed. It's going to have to be away from the cities in a place where there's at least some fresh water. It's going to be very important, because when protons from the sun come down to the deck, and that will be an unprecedented thing in the last 11,000 years of recorded history, when that happens, it's going to heat up the atmosphere. Going to be very little water around. So places that have a lot of water to begin with now are still going to have it. That's one of the key things right there.
Ed, it's funny. You mentioned protons coming down. I recall a prediction you made about the jet stream coming down and touching Earth. And then there was a whole series of you could actually see it on the local weather. Several of the weather people reported that the jet stream actually touched ground. That was another one of the predictions that you got right. Now you're saying protons from the sun.
Well, these solar flares, the kill shot that I've been talking about,
yes.
The X-rays they reach the Earth in 8 minutes. Okay, so there's no protection against the X-rays, but you don't have to worry about that, because they're not going to penetrate the atmosphere anyway. The International Space Station, they've got some problems, but the protons, if mass is ejected from the sun, and if it keeps pushing, as it will, against Earth's magnetosphere, the shields will go down, and Scotty will not be able to fix it anymore. That's what's going to happen. These series of very energetic solar flares will take down Earth's magnetic shields, allowing protons, mass from the sun, to come right down to the troposphere and the ionosphere and heat the Earth's atmosphere up. Now, you have 2 days to see that. It takes 2 days for mass to come from the sun to the Earth. So you've got 2 days to get out of Dodge and go to whatever hole or place you've got prepared, a slot canyon or whatever.
And you really mean a hole, don't you?
Well, unfortunately, it's got to be. I mean a hole because in some places not only will you have heat, but after the Earth heats up, there'll be a time delay of perhaps a week, and then the winds will pick up in wide belts around the planet, and they will pick up the speeds. I've talked to NOAA scientists who have given me some back-of-the-envelope sketches about this kind of thing. If there's I don't want to get too technical. Let's just say that the winds will be sustained high speeds, 200 to 300 miles an hour, for days on end. So the best
well, that takes
way,
everything down to the ground, Ed.
Be underground.
Yeah, that'd be the only place. I know that when we have a large solar flare, it's occurred a number of times, the Earth's magnetic field is depressed. In other words, boom, you get hit, and the Earth's magnetic field kind of bends inward. It gets depressed. And you're talking about the Earth's magnetic field, in essence, developing a hole or collapsing?
Collapsing with enough time to allow mass to come down in because of a quick succession of solar flares.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the kill shot's all about.
Not one, but a succession.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this solar cycle 24 will be a doozy. The solar scientists have already said, be prepared. Art.
Actually,
I told you the shot across the bow.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they're kind of at odds right now. There's one group of scientists that think this coming cycle is going to be gigantic. Others that think it'll be minimal.
I understand, but in this last solar minimum, so-called, it produced 2 mega flares for which they had to create a new scale. And you remember, I said they were coming.
I do. There was one solar flare, thank God, not directed toward Earth, that went directly off any scale they have to measure by. I'm Art Bell. Morning, all. Filling in for George Norrie, who's taking a vacation day off. Gives you a 3-day weekend, and as I mentioned earlier, certainly needed. When you do a nightly program like this, it takes it out of you. Believe me. Ed Dames, Major Ed Dames, remote viewer, is my guest. And in a moment, we'll sort of review some of what we've touched on tonight, and that's a very great deal. Top of the hour, we'll go to open lines and questions for Ed Dames. Stay right there. Ed, I normally wouldn't bring this up, but I've got quite a number of fast blasts like this. I'll pick one. William from Boise, Idaho says, Art, I've noticed that the sunshine on my lawn has changed. Actually, he means not that, I think. He says, my sun-loving grass is pale and stunted in the open areas and grows thick and green in the shade. Something is up. And I have a number like that. Any comments?
You've broached the subject before, and people have stated things similar to William. The sun is not so bright anymore and those kinds of things. The topic deals with what in the vernacular has come to be known as chemtrails. And I cannot comment upon that because I can't talk about it because of my former connections with the Department of Defense.
So you're saying this has something to do with chemtrails?
That's my guess.
Oh, okay. I was going to. I was imagining you were going to say it was the sun and the ozone layer.
Well, it's a combination of the sun, the ever diminishing ozone layer, and what has come to be known as chemtrails.
People in America can't imagine not being able to go to the store, Ed, and buy whatever they want, food-wise. You know, we've enjoyed relatively cheap food in the United States now for as long as we can remember. So it's almost beyond everybody's imagination that there could actually be not food to buy?
That's what I'm saying. There's 3 days supply of food on most shelves in most cities. Where
That's
I live
true.
in Ukraine, it's just same old, same old. You either get it from the garden, and otherwise you go to the store and see what they have, if anything at all. But you don't plan on them having anything.
Right now, Ed, I'm sort of imagining a food shortage born of transportation not being able to get it to us anymore because of the price of diesel. I mean, after all, trucks deliver a very high percentage of all the food we buy, and they all are powered by diesel. And I talked to a friend of mine the other day who drives an 18-wheeler, and he said, look, companies are beginning to close. Independent operators are beginning to just park their truck, and that's that.
Mm-hmm. But in the end, yes, and that will be a problem, a growing problem. But in the end, what will take the food supply out in terms of the cities will be electronic disenfranchisement. When electronics go down, nothing will work. I'll give you an example. Several years ago, I was teaching a class in Los Angeles, a workshop, and I went over across the street to get to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, at that particular time, there was an earthquake in Seattle, and it shook up the Starbucks headquarters server, the computer server.
Mm-hmm.
And every Starbucks in the country was hooked in. All the cash registers were hooked into that server. I couldn't buy a cup of coffee because they could not take my cash. They couldn't operate the
Interesting you would mention that, Ed, because not very many years ago, I think it was one of the satellites, I can't recall the name right now, went out. And for a day or a part of a day, you couldn't go to the bank. You couldn't use your credit card. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do. And I do remember that. It was quite a number of years ago. But what I'm saying is when these solar flares begin to hit, it's not going to just be single event latch-ups, which in the past was this particular satellite, where you have the solid state material inside of some transistors in an IC go out because of high energy. These flares are going to take down all of the satellites, all of them. There will be no commo whatsoever. And that is an interesting situation for the military. China has 25% of the world's population. If the war now becomes just guns and no planes can fly because they can't navigate and there's nothing there, guess who's going to win?
Yeah, or guess who's going to lose?
Yeah.
When these flares hit, Ed, will it matter which side of the Earth is sun-facing at the time the heavy protons arrive?
We're not sure. It's a very, very important question to us, but we think that it may not matter, but we're not sure because the differential heating of the atmosphere will take several days, and that the heat will spread out across the entire planet, particularly in certain belts. But those permutations are far too complex for us to understand. However, if we lean on our unconscious, which is plugged into a collective unconscious, it can show us where the survival zones are and where the safe zones are and where we would be safe.
Have you looked at that? Have you looked at the safe zones?
Oh, yes. Now, well, for each individual, there's general areas. I don't want to mention them because the first time I did this on your show about 9 years ago,
yes,
the real estate agents in that particular town were very, very happy. The mayor wasn't necessarily, but so many people moved to that particular place that it changed the zeitgeist and the elan of the landscape. The town was very upset with me because I sent I talked about one individual who asked me in an email where would be a good sanctuary so he would not be a crispy critter. So I actually used remote viewing to find his particular sanctuary, and unfortunately I mentioned the name of that place on your radio show.
I sort of recall, yes.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to do that again because the residents were very upset with me.
All right. Well, you've always got to bear in mind there are millions of people out there at any given moment on this show. So, yeah, that does occur.
Oh, the real estate agents loved me. They were approximately 3,000 people that moved to that town. And I'm not kidding either. And the town went from a place where nobody ever locked their doors, and it was beautiful. It was a paradise on earth in terms of fresh water. The town got their fresh water directly from one of the largest freshwater lakes in America. They didn't even filter it. That's how clean the water was. But anyway, the entire town changed because, everybody, including some ne'er-do-wells, went up there to be safe.
Ed, can I please request a project? I'd like you to look at the energy situation at oil and oil prices and our most immediate future in that area.
This is what Ford Aerospace asked me to do.
Yeah.
Okay, oil. All right. I'll take a look. Now, when we did this for Ford Aerospace, we actually went in. They were worried about whether a war was actually going to happen or not,
right.
And so we had to go and the project was called. The contract was called The Crisis Profile of Saddam Hussein, where we, including myself, had to actually go in the mind of Saddam Hussein to see if he was going to attack Kuwait, and we saw that he was. And therefore,
let me get a little more specific, Ed. I want to know about peak oil. There's a big debate going on now about whether we actually have reached peak oil. That is to say, whether we're pumping as much oil as we're ever going to pump out of the ground, and we're on the downslope of it now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know if we're at the mercy right now of speculators or whether there really is a shortage. I don't know if anybody really knows the answer to that question, except maybe you.
Well, there was a huge discovery in Brazil a few weeks ago, too, on whether
Off the
or
coast
not
of Brazil, right.
Yeah. I think we have to qualify that particular project a little bit more, but I'll research it and come up with some parameters, and I'll email that to you and see if you'd like that as a project, and then we'll go.
Okay. All right. Very good. But in general, peak oil, have we reached it? Are prices going to continue up, or are we just sort of in a speculative mess right now?
Okay, I'll attend to that.
Because I think our very immediate economic future is dependent on the answer to that question. So I'd appreciate it. And then, of course, we've got this disease thing that you have never stopped talking about. And now you think that the disease you saw all those years ago is H5N1.
I think it's a polymorph, yes, a mutation. H5N1 is a bird flu,
right?
And that's not a human pandemic. I'm saying that right now, as we talk, it has already mutated into a communicable human-to-human transmissible disease, and then now it sets the stage for the global pandemic because we can't stop birds from migrating, and mosquitoes have now been found with bird flu, in their blood. So it's a double whammy. There's no way to quarantine against this. We're facing another 1918.
Do you know where this has begun?
Actually, I do, but it's in several different places. Human-to-human in transit. I can name right now. I could name 8 countries where this has begun.
Name them.
South Korea, Yalta, and Crimea. Indonesia is a big one. Let's see, South Korea, Indonesia, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam. These are where a total of 100 people have died, 100 human cases alone. This thing, you have to think of a virus as a single organism with a brain. If you think of those of your listeners are familiar with Rupert Sheldrake's idea of a morphogenetic field, these viruses are talking to each other. It's a multi-pronged attack. They want food, and the food is mammals. That's what they eat. They eat us, and they eat birds. Okay, that's how they survive. And it's a very, very intelligent organism. It isn't just one microbe swimming around in somebody's bloodstream eating your cells. It's an entire organism, a holistic gestalt.
And do you see man coming up with a viable defense against this?
No, Tamiflu is just moderately as an antidote is just moderately effective. There isn't any antidote. It's got to run It's got to run its course. Unfortunately, it's humankind's turn to be sitting ducks. The microbes are going to win this one, and then it'll go back. That's the nature of things. It's a cycle. These pandemics rise and fall.
Well, I've heard somebody who said that Mother Nature doesn't get angry, she gets even. And with what's going on in the world right now, one, I suppose, could
well, that's
put
an
forth the premise
anthropomorphism.
that that's exactly that there's a sort of a balancing of the scales that's getting ready to occur.
Yes, I think it's a way of, I think it is indeed. But for those of us as individuals, it's difficult when we lose a family member.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, these are horrible things to be predicting. Do you ever feel any guilt, Ed, in view of the kind of predictions that you make?
No, because I might be able to save some lives. When I tell people, hey, this, excuse me, but the Citigroup Center is a target for a terrorist, maybe somebody there will get another job, and I might have saved one life, that kind of thing. Sometimes I feel guilty because remote viewing gives us an extreme edge in financial markets. We can see which way markets are going and make a lot of money there. That makes me feel a little bit guilty sometimes. But otherwise, if I have a chance to save even a single life, hey, and that's a feel-good thing.
Have you made a lot of money?
We have in the financial in the futures market, Art, yeah, because we can see we're not looking in terms of the futures market. We're not looking at the future of the market. We're looking at in the moment at the trajectory of a certain market, which way it's going. So we're not remote viewing the future. We're looking at something the markets can't see as fast as we can, and then we can put our money there.
Mm-hmm. When you're talking about something like H5N1, how do you advise people? I mean, there are going to be people, they'll call next hour, and they'll say, Ed, how do I defend myself against this? How do I even try to defend myself?
Right now we're looking, Art. I have this couple terrorist projects that are eclipsing this, but one of my key goals in the near future, in the next 6 months, is to look at an effective, use remote viewing and we're skilled professionals, so we know how to do this, is to look at an effective prophylaxis and or treatment for the darn thing, despite the inefficiency of Tamiflu and all that. My idea is that for every naturally occurring toxin or biological insult in terms of toxicology, there's a natural cure somewhere. And I'm hoping that's the case with H5, not with H5N1, but it's polymorph that turns into a human influenza. That there may be an effective prophylaxis, something that either mediates or mitigates the effects, or better, prevents it.
Like any flu, Ed, it doesn't matter, any flu, there are normal precautions you can take that will at least protect you to some degree. I mean, keep your hands clean.
Yes, of course. But in terms of remote viewing, we can look at the optimal treatment for either an individual or a group of people. And that's where remote viewing shines, because it's an end run around your thinking, analytical mind. I mean, for goodness sake, all of us think we went into the right career. We thought we bought the right house and all of that. That's the fallibility of the thinking mind, and why I've been in this business for a quarter of a century, because I'm in awe of what the master problem solver, our own individual unconscious connected to the matrix, the global mind, can do. It's awing, totally, as all my students know.
Okay, of all the grim predictions that you have, what is the most pressing, the one that's going to happen the soonest?
I'm going to have to say the global pandemic. That's the one that's going to really, that one will cause socioeconomic disasters as well as simple death. It will cause a crisis that we haven't seen, well, probably since the Dark Ages.
One would have to imagine, if that manifests itself, that those countries where people are living in less than fully clean conditions, and they're living very close together, China, areas of Southeast Asia, India.
North America.
that wouldn't have been next on my list, Ed. In other words, we don't live head-to-head, body-to-body, as they do there. I mean,
Yes,
most
we
of
do.
these epidemics come from those areas because of
No,
those
well,
very reasons.
That's correct. But once it gets in, no one will be immune. No one will be immune from this. New York City will be just as bad as Hong Kong in terms of virulence. Nobody's going to be immune from this, and the medical system will break down and fail because it will not be able to handle the numbers of sick people, nor will mortuaries be able to handle the numbers of dead people. That's how bad it's going to be.
It gets brighter and brighter. My God. I guess we all know these things are possible, but you're saying this pandemic is probably first on the list, coming very, very soon.
For me, for people for my students over the years who are learning remote viewing, they can see for themselves. They know how to target this. They know what to look for. They know how not to be biased by their beliefs or mine. They're not led. It's totally an objective, robotic thing. It's direct knowledge.
Have you looked at your own survival?
I have indeed.
And?
I'm going to do my best to survive.
No, that's not what I asked. I understand that you're going to try and survive. It's instinctual. My question was whether you will.
I don't know. Don't know, Art. I'm going to do my
So
best.
you haven't specifically looked at that. All right, Ed, hold tight. What we're going to do is open the phone lines, and any questions, criticisms, whatever you have for Ed Dames, up next. Here I am. Good morning, everybody. Filling in for George Norrie. My guest is Major Ed Dames. Listen, want to slip this in? I've got email if you'd like to email me. Love to get it from you. I am Art Bell, ARTBELL, at mindspring.com. That's Art Bell at mindspring, MINDSPRING.com, or Art Bell at AOL.com. I think the Mindspring address can take... I can take more messages there. So, once again, artbell at mindspring.com or artbell at AOL.com. In a moment, Major Ed Dames and you. Well, all right, Ed, if you're ready. Well, before we do that, you do have I want to give you a chance to plug your DVD. It's called Viewing the Future, Grim Predictions by Major Ed Dames. And so plug it. How do people get it? How much? All that.
Oh, it's inexpensive. In fact, if, as I mentioned, people who want to learn remote viewing, either in my workshops, and there's only 2 this year at the end of the year, or my Learn RV DVDs, which are highly professional, we slip that in there free for them. And they can either call my order line or go to learnrv.com for more information. And do you want the order line number?
Absolutely.
Okay, 24 hours a day, and that's toll-free 1-866-607-8439.
Okay, one more time. Nobody ever gets it first time around.
Okay, toll-free to sign up for a workshop or to learn remote viewing through the Learn RV DVDs. That's 1-866-607-8439. I got talked into doing a book. I've told you for years, for more than a decade, I'll never do a book because I'm too busy. I finally got arm twisted till my arm almost broke off. So I got the best agent that there is, and we're looking for a publisher now. So what I'm writing about is how an operations officer like myself, these days and times, contemporary, uses remote viewing in the field. How we take this intelligence, the information that's converted into intelligence, and go out into the field and search for missing children and missing aviators, things like that.
Any working title?
A couple of working titles. One is A Distant Fire.
A Distant Fire. Not so distant by...
A remote viewing casebook.
According to what you've been saying tonight. All right, let's go to Wade, somewhere east of the Rockies. You're on the air with Major Ed Dames. Wade?
Oh, hello, Art, and hello, Major Dames. I have a question and a comment about Ed Dames' military intelligence past and his current situation. But my question is, Art, you did a show last fall with Evelyn Paglini,
Mm-hmm.
And she made a statement about Barack Obama's security situation. And in light of the gaffe by Hillary this evening, the verbal gaffe, I was wondering if Ed Daines has checked into any possible problems with Barack. And I was wanting to know also, is there any connection between remote viewing and what Evelyn Paglini does, witchcraft, sorcery,
Mm-hmm.
if there's any correlation to that, considering that she makes predictions as well.
All right. Well, I doubt he has anything specific on Barack, but we can ask Ed.
Negative. I'm not at all interested.
Okay. Now, with respect to Evelyn Paglini, she has had a hit rate that is just beyond all reason. She's been so accurate so many times. She calls herself a witch. She says she's intuitive, Ed. Does it have a relationship to remote viewing, that sort of intuitive insight?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have any. In my business, we don't have any monopoly on what we do. We have a monopoly on being precise and exact. And as my students know, they have to be on target every single time. Can't be off, too. But we're using the same innate faculty that Evelyn was born with. We're using that. We just turn it into a skill. When Evelyn dies, she takes her knowledge with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we have is piano music. We have sheet music. So when I die, the sheet music's still there for somebody else to learn and play.
Okay.
My second question is art. Is involving, Ed is a former high-ranking military intelligence official who now lives in the northern Ukraine. I believe I mentioned in the past, I believe didn't he get married here recently, or was engaged to marry somebody who was Russian or Ukrainian?
Correct.
And the fact that you mentioned here earlier on the show that you used Russian pilots in this hunt for Steve Fawcett. There's those who believe that possibly, Ed, that given the fact that you were involved with so much top secret stuff, and that you are now living in the northern Ukraine, essentially Russia, that maybe somehow, some way, you might have been turned.
Oh my God, do you think so?
Very logically, I've heard.
Oh, I mean, I'm that scares me to even think about. I'm going to have to go back and reassess things to see if I have been turned. If I was turned, maybe I can be doubled and redoubled again.
Well, I've heard some very influential people who question that.
No, really, they could be right. You'll never know, will you? No matter what I would say to you, there's nothing that would convince you one way or another. So you'll have to be. The only way you would know is for you to learn remote viewing and look in my deep mind. That's it. Because that's how what we used to do to potential spies from Russia. That's how we knew who they were and whether they were double agents or not. You need to do that to me. So you have to learn remote viewing.
There you are. All right. West of the Rockies, I think it's Gerald in San Diego.
Hello, Art. Hello, Ed. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I called you a couple of years ago, Art. That's when Ed's cell phone went dead. He said it's never happened before, and he said something happened to Ed. And I was never able to talk with him. And then he came on a call later. But how you doing, Ed?
I'm good. When my cell phone went dead is when I got turned.
Are you going to find my brother's body?
Wanted to hold it. You're both talking. Caller, the question?
Ed Dames, are you going to find my brother's body in Alabama or not?
I guess not.
Why not? After everything I've done for you?
Well, what have you done for me?
A little $2 million crack that you got your behind stuck in, I came along and pulled you out of it.
I'm not sure. Are you sure you're speaking with the right person here?
Ed, I've been pursuing you in person ever since you're, president of SciTech? Asking you for help.
Can you go back to this $2 million crack again?
The $2 million lawsuit. You got slapped with the $2 million judgment?
No, I
don't
remember this.
I know that you think that I don't know that I help you, but now I do.
Okay.
In what way did you assist him, caller?
First time I met Ed was at this Mind Dazzle workshop just south of LAX.
Okay, let me say it again. Rather than giving us the whole history, in what way did you assist him?
I gave him a stack of papers asking him to help me the first time I met Ed the top sheet of papers on that stack of papers was a photocopy of a certified mail receipt that I sent to Ed when he was at SciTech in Maui, supposedly, asking him for help. Well, I never got a response from that, even though somebody signed for it. And I as far as I know, that could have been his vice president of SciTech, the one that sued him for $2 million. And it went beyond a lawsuit and actually slapped Ed with a $2 million judgment. The judge in the state of Washington said, you either turn over boxes of records that you broke in a condo in Beverly Hills, along with, that was his colleague, and stole from her. And
okay, you're still not answering the question.
You got to pay $2 million.
Okay.
Which the judge threw that out of the court. Continue.
Okay. No, I'm not going to let him continue because he wouldn't answer the question, Ed.
No, I don't know what the question was either.
Well, he made a statement that he had saved you from a $2 million, pulled you up out of a $2 million crack, and he didn't answer the question. He wouldn't answer the question. Two or three shots at it, and that's all you get.
Okay.
Good morning from Pahrump, Nevada. Here in Pahrump, Nevada. My goodness. Hi there.
Hi.
Listening, no doubt, to KNYE.
Yes, this is DJ, and I have a question.
Fire away.
Have you done, your guest, has he done remote viewing some of the China's development of a needleless injection device that's disposable? Something about they had the developer of PVC over there in China, and they also, something about they need gold dust in order to introduce an antidote or some type of serum to help with the pandemic plagues that are coming up. Some people are saying that they're investing heavily in U.S. gold mines, and I was wondering if they had remote viewed any of this, or if our country is also following suit with needless injection devices.
Well, negative in terms of the connectivity or association with the gold, but there are, as you might know, pneumatic injection devices.
Well, they're talking about these are PVC, disposable, needleless, and they're using gold dust, which the skin will accept, along with a agent.
Negative. I'm not aware of that at all.
Oh, okay. Well, you might. Maybe you can get your students together and kind of look at that and see if that's something that could benefit the United States.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very, very much for the call, and take care. Remember, I think, Ed, that a lot of people don't properly understand remote viewing, and they think that you're like a psychic and you can instantly look at anything at all.
The best thing for them to do is I teach on the web for free. That's where I am most of the day when I'm not in the field. So learnrv.com, go there and go to forums. And in the forums are all of my students and professionals and myself. And that's the best place for them to learn more about it.
Okay. Long Island, New York, and John, you're on with Major Ed Dames.
Hello, Ed. How are you?
Fine.
Okay. I still understand remote viewing exactly, but my question was, a lot of people predicted the end of the world, like Harold Camping, numerous occasions, 2011, the end of the world, and the Mayan calendar. Is it any possible way that remote viewing can actually pinpoint the exact day of the Earth's demise?
The Earth is not. No. You and I, everything has a beginning and an end, relationships, people, lives, countries, nations. But this world is going to go on for a whole lot longer than you or I or nations. So the world's not going to end.
Caller? No, I guess he's not there. No, the world's not going to end, but I suppose...
Life on Earth, the way we know it, is going to end.
It could certainly end, yes. Mm-hmm. All right, Mark in Oregon, you're on the air with Major Dames.
Yeah, good evening, Art, and good evening, Ed. It's great to get through to you. I've really enjoyed the show. It's been highly informative and just what we need these days. I have a very brief comment and suggestion and a question. My comment is, Ed, you're the first person actually that I've heard, and I've talked with a number of people in private life, about the big change in the spectrum of sunlight that we're getting, where we're no longer getting the blue-green rays that were actually transformed into that out of the ultraviolet rays, which are always coming from the sun, so that we would get the cooler sun rays during the warm season, wherever that season was on the planet. It all had to do with the angle of the sun and a refractory effect with the ozone of the planet. And we're really suffering global warming and melting ice and all the other maladies because of the sunlight is now predominantly ultraviolet. I noticed that back in 1997 because I've studied light a bit, and the sunlight has never been the same since 1997. In the springtime, I noticed it the first time, and it's been UV ever since. It has a distinctly different color to it, and it has a distinctly different feel to it as far as the heat sensation when it reaches the skin. It's very hard to stay out in.
Wow, that's why skin cancers are up so high. I mean, children in New Zealand, it's by law, their playgrounds must be covered.
Yes, sir. And, Ed, as far as a remedy for the bird flu, as well as any other kind of flu that I've ever heard of, as well as colds, sore throats, any type of external, it can be applied topically, or internal fungi, such as a yeast infection that women suffer from occasionally, 100% pure oil of oregano, essentially oil of oregano, the essential oil, at 100% strength, taken sublingually underneath the tongue all the way at the back, going directly into the bloodstream, would probably be a very likely preventative against any type of flu if someone was using it once or twice a day.
I don't know if it's a prophylaxis. I will tell you my personal story. Early last year, I had pneumonia. I work out. I'm an athlete, and I work out a lot. And I worked out even with pneumonia. I thought I was going to die, but I took this oil of oregano and I drank it and mixed it with water for about a week before I couldn't stand it anymore. I said, that's it. I'd rather have the pneumonia. 2 days later, I was not only cured, I was completely cured of pneumonia.
Check with your doctor before doing anything that you're hearing about
Especially
here.
Dr. Doom.
Absolutely. All right. Let's go to Ray in Gainesville, Florida, who needs to turn his radio down first. Ray, you're on the air with Major Ed Dames.
Yeah, I had it on speakerphone to try to keep from frying my brain on the cell phone.
Okay.
Mike, I wanted to ask about the moon. First, a couple of comments about the ozone layer. First off, I believe the sun puts out electrons, rays, which boost the ozone layer. And also, because I think worldwide we're having a drought, there's not as many thunderstorms. And thunderstorms, the lightning is a great generator of ozone. And if we're not getting as many lightning strikes, then I think that's reducing the ozone layer. Is that correct?
I don't know. I'm not a geophysicist.
No, I don't know either. Certainly lightning strikes generate ozone. Whether it gets to the ozone layer is an entirely separate question. I don't think
it's lighter than air, so it goes up. Now, my comment about the moon is I personally believe that the moon is getting larger. I think it's going to dip down. It's not going to be like it's going to crash into the Earth, but it's
you think wait a minute. Whoa. You think the Earth, the moon is getting larger?
Yes.
What are you basing that on?
Well, personal observations. I've been tracking it, measuring it, and also.
You mean you've been watching the moon, and it just seems to be getting bigger.
Yeah, I know it has an elliptical orbit. Certain times a year it gets larger, but I've been tracking it for like about 5 or 6 years. The planet lined up in 2000. This every few thousand years the planets line up, and that's had an effect on it. But also
the apparition, of course, changes in size year to year and month to month. But I don't know about the mass. I think scientists would have detected that. And had the mass changed, our Clementine mission would have been bye-bye. The Air Force's NASA's Clementine mission mapping the moon, and spacecraft would be in big trouble. They're very sensitive to gravitational changes.
Yeah, that's something. But moon is getting bigger. That's just based on sort of a casual observation. I mean, going out your back door and going, oh, my God, look at it tonight.
Actually, the apparition does change.
The third larger. Yeah, when it's down toward the horizon and moving through more atmosphere, it looks even bigger yet. I don't know, Ed. You might want to put that on your list and see if our moon really is beginning to bulge ominously.
Maybe it's moon in my eyes.
All right, hold it right there, Ed. We are taking calls from Major Ed Dames. So if you have any moon observations or anything else, get on the phone. Here we are. For George Norrie, I'm Art Bell. That would be the place. Good morning, everybody. Major Ed Dames is my guest. It's a fine morning, and that's a fine bumper. It just kind of fits, doesn't it? More Ed Dames in a moment. Ed, there's one other project I would dearly love for you to take on, and it is this. We actually broke it on the show a couple of years ago, if maybe not even that long. There's been a rise in autism among our children, Ed, to the point where it's now about 1 in every 150 children. It's horrific, absolutely horrific. And a lot of people suspect the possibility that it may be the vaccines that we give our young. And this is something I'm faced with as a question right now and debating with my doctor, my child's doctor. And I would like to know if, in fact, vaccines are connected to the rise in autism or if it's something else.
Well, the way we work in my business is we go into a problem completely objective. So the way we would hit that is to look at autism as a syndrome and look at the cause. But we would not bias ourselves with... I also believe, by the way, that possibly the mercury in vaccines or another agent or synergistic effect of some of the elements in there may lead to this. But that's my belief. And my belief is my thinking, a function of my thinking brain, which is fallible. But unconscious and the global mind, the matrix, knows the right answer. So we eschew our thoughts and we go into a problem totally objective. Yes, I can give you that answer.
Okay, please do work on that.
Okay, no, I can get that to you pretty fast because that is a much simpler problem than the one you posed about peak oil.
All right. Roger in San Antonio, Texas, you're on the air with Major Ed Dames.
Oh, this is really great. I can't tell you how happy, personally pleased I am to be able to be on the show this evening. Hello, Ed, and hello, Art.
Hi.
I have 4 quick things, and then I'll just be quiet and let you guys take it. In terms of the viruses, I'm a firm believer, as a Desert Storm veteran with depleted uranium issues, that colloidal silver, and I'll say it for you, Art, be sure to consult your doctor. But I quit going to the VA doctors, and I took on alternative healing. And the thing about colloidal silver, that's 4-9 silver, not 3-9. The thing about it is that it actually can be produced for pennies, and it lasts forever, whereas the other gentleman that called about the oregano, excellent suggestion. However, I mean, in long periods of, you might say, drought, where are you going to get the stuff, and how are you going to pay for it? But the silver's cheap, and I'll just leave that to anybody to investigate like I had to do. Okay. The second thing is a question regarding once things start getting worse, are we still going to pay property taxes and mortgages? I mean, when there's bodies everywhere and things are terrible. Number 3, you made a quick little reference to zombies, and it might have been a joke, but I'm curious. What did that mean? And number 4, I just want to mention regarding the earthquakes in China. I would like to submit a respectfully request slip for Mr. Benjamin Fulford to come back on your show because he talked about this ultimatum against the Rockefellers, which we might just call the Illuminati family brotherhood. And then all of a sudden, boom, this happens over there. And it almost seems like they got their bluff called. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm reaching, and this is the different program. But those first 3 in particular...
okay, well, we'll tackle everything except we'll leave Rockefeller with the earthquake, and we'll take on the property taxes. That's going to be a personal decision for you to make it over all the bodies and get down there to the city hall and pay your taxes. Zombies, Ed, you mentioned zombies.
I was being facetious, but what I meant was the people that want what you have because they don't have it. And that is a position where if you can avoid it is the best thing to avoid.
So
Otherwise,
you meant thieves.
I'm sorry.
You meant thieves.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean thieves.
Okay.
Or actually, they could be more than thieves.
Oakland, California brings Robin.
Yes, hi. I have two practical questions. But before I say ask those, I wanted to congratulate you, Art, on your induction into the Radio Hall of Fame.
Well, I haven't been inducted.
Well, let's induce you quickly.
Thank you. I'd appreciate your vote.
And also, Ed, I wanted to wish you all the happiness in the world on your wedding. I think when last we heard from you, you were going to say I do, and you've done.
When do you say I do, or have
Probably
you already?
August. Probably August.
August, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I sent Art a photo of my fiance.
Yes, he did.
All best wishes.
Beautiful gal.
I would hope so. Okay, here are my questions. My questions are: with the satellites going down, I mean, what do you recommend, Ed? What is the best way for us to hold our money or have our money?
In the mattress, as gold.
Not in the banks.
Gold, cold cash.
No, cash,
No.
And not cash. Really is problematic. I would have to say if gold or silver. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Numismatics.
Okay. All right. So basically, when you save up enough, get gold or.
He says gold coins.
Gold coins.
Or silver.
Right.
The gold or silver coins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there'll always be an infrastructure that will take that from you and give you whatever denomination happens to be of any value, if there is any at that time, unless we go back on the gold standard.
Thank you. That's very helpful to me. The other thing I wanted to ask you very quickly, in your Learn RV DV, there was a RV expert on earlier in the week, and he stated that when you are practicing this, and I would love to learn it, but you are able to access a place of perfect peace.
Negative. No. No, that has nothing to do with an idea of peace. It is a high attention state, very high theta, extremely attentive state, like playing the piano, but playing a very difficult piece. There's no peace at all. It's very much attention, like being back in grammar school.
Okay.
I know who you're talking about. That's a scientist, and that scientist has no experience out where the rubber meets the road. They're in the laboratory. It's the idea of never say you have to. They've been in the laboratory their whole life. They haven't had to use this and break it, fix it, fall on their faces, pick themselves back up, and do it again.
All right. Charles in Pontiac, Illinois.
Hello.
Hello, Charles.
Hello. I just had a comment to make. Earlier he mentioned about the storms and everything going on, and the RV that you do is absolutely correct. Regarding what the Bible has to say as far as calling those things that are not as though they were, and faith being the strongest substance known to man, because it says faith is the substance or the evidence of things unseen.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And when you're doing the RV, like in a positive way, you're focusing on the positive thing. You're calling it.
No, that is not what remote viewing is. Remote viewing is an information collection skill. It's neutral. It has no emotions or thoughts attached to it. It's just information, okay?
Right.
That's all that. Faith is something else.
Right, because we are spirits. We do have a body, but we are spirits. When we pass on, we're still alive.
I agree with you, but that has nothing to do with remote viewing. Remote viewing is a mind skill. That's all that it is.
All right. Let's go to Indiana and CJ. Hi.
How you doing, Art?
Just fine, sir.
I got a question for the Major about the actual technical side of remote viewing.
Okay.
Is it necessary to have I guess the remote viewing tour guide? Is it necessary to have someone there focusing you
No.
Or can you do it
No,
on
no,
your own?
no. A teacher has to be there to teach you. A coach, that's what I am in my professionals. But you are being taught to solve a problem by yourself, alone. You do not want anybody else near you because their body language or their ideas or their expressions or their emotions or telepathically that can influence raw, pure, neutral data.
Okay, and my secondary question is there a certain personality type or a type of person that would be better at remote viewing?
No.
Or is it
negative? Everybody is born with the same innate faculty, and we can teach that just as if everybody is born with the ability to run or play basketball or ride a bicycle. To the degree that they actually do that, is up to them to make that decision about whether they want to do it or not. And yes, some people are born with a natural talent, so others can be above average in their performance.
Okay. I appreciate that, and
All right,
I'll
sir.
let you get back to the other callers.
All
Thank
right.
you, Art.
Thank you very much for the call, and take care. To Seattle, Washington, Tammy, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. I just had a question. Art, some time ago, you did an experiment with prayer, and
That's right.
I was just, and I know that you were worried that, it could go kind of awry, and
not specifically, Tammy, just to be clear, not specifically with prayer, but with intent.
Okay.
It's perhaps a synonym. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, what I was wondering, all the predictions about the ozone, well, not the prediction about the ozone because it's happening, but would prayer help that on, a mass scale?
Oh, very good question, actually. Thank you. Ed, would concentrated intent have a possibility of affecting something of that scale?
There's two things I could say about that. Remember your clock when we slowed it down?
Yes.
That wasn't really intent. I caught your audience by surprise, and before they had a chance to think, which it takes about 3 seconds, we slowed your clock down. But that's different than intent. That was my intent, and I used your audience, that particular energy to slow your clock down. Mm-hmm. What you're talking about she's right. It is actually prayer art. It's that kind of intent.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, I said it's a synonym anyway. Intent, concentrated intent, or prayer, pretty much the same
aligned, thing. If it's congruent with a person's heart, if their head and their heart are congruent, if they really believe in what, and it's not, there's not a disconnect, then yeah, it's very real and very powerful, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay. International line, good morning. I'm not told where you're calling from. Where indeed are you?
Is this me?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Art. First of all, congratulations on your little girl.
Thank you.
And I enjoy the program. And how are you, Ed?
I'm fine, thank you.
Where are you, sir?
I'm in Canada.
Canada, okay.
I would like to know if you have ever tried to remote view UFOs or other planets.
Oh.
Yes, it's the acme of my career. Contact is the acme of my career because I believe when we rebuild this planet, because we're going down ecologically and sociologically, when we rebuild, we need mentors or we will make the same mistakes again. So contact is the most important personal project I have, and remote viewing is has been able to make inroads into that for me.
And you remote viewed UFOs as being intelligently controlled by beings from elsewhere?
To make a long story short, yes.
Okay. Harry in Texas, you're on the air with Major Ed Dames.
Thank you. And Art, congratulations. My daughter just got married. The time goes very fast, so enjoy it while you can.
Sure does.
Hey, first, I want to share off an observation. I have a ranch down in South Texas, and we had an earthquake in Falls City, about 7 miles from my place, and my brother had called me to tell me about it. He'd read it in the paper. I wasn't aware of it. Mm-hmm. And in the same conversation, I shared with him, I said, I was out there around the stock tank, and it's a small stock tank for watering the cattle, and I had never seen such a sight. There were thousands and thousands of very large frogs lined up along the bank, as close together as they could possibly be, and then the rest of them were in the water. And I never really connected it until I heard about the China and the frog or toad situation. I was wondering, That earthquake happened just before the one in the Midwest, and then about a week later, the one in Nevada. But just wanted to share that observation. I thought it was kind of interesting. Beyond that, would you agree that technology and science has been to the detriment of society in this respect of humanity? Because before we relied on science and technology to lull us into this false sense of security, humanity, societies, evolved with what was around them, their ecology, the environment. As things changed, they learned how to change with it. And we've lost that possibility now.
We become generalists, for one thing, in terms of each scientist has become, we become specialists. Scientists have lost the forest for the trees. They're not naturalists anymore. The naturalists 2 centuries ago were philosophers as well as theologians. But I think that, personal opinion, that our technology is so far ahead of our spirituality, there's almost a break. We've lost contact with ourselves.
I'd agree with that. Well, thank you for your interview tonight. It was very interesting.
Thank you, sir, and have a good morning. East of the Rockies, Mississippi. Cal, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm so glad to get through to you. I really appreciate it. It's great talking to you, Art. I've had a really rough time since Hurricane Katrina, and we've tried to get back on our feet here. We have a small farm, and we raise cattle and sheep and goats and various animals. I'm wondering if Major Dane sees any future for such an agricultural enterprise in face of all the problems. Is there a future for animal husbandry in the United States?
Well, you're talking to a vegan, for one thing. So
well,
I'm a little bit biased.
Actually, the sheep can be raised for wool and the goats can make goat cheese. So even if you're a vegan,
that's probably not your customers. So, no, I don't know. I actually don't know. I do know that as we forecast many, many years ago, there's a situation where there's no milk for human babies, no cow's milk. And that appears to be a result of not just starvation on the part of dairy cows, but of disease. So it's a very complex situation. And I see disease not only as an influenza pandemic, but also bovine diseases. Right now, I'm not sure what that is, but the future looks bleak.
Well, let me ask you this. I've heard that the United States government has moved their agricultural studies from the hoof and mouth disease from an out-of-the-United States island to Florida. One of the possible locations is Florida, Mississippi, and that they're going to actually experiment with this deadly bacteria in Florida, Mississippi, or another state.
Well, they're not going to experiment outside of a P4 facility. I was this country's biological warfare case officer, so I know all the principal people in the biological warfare arena, defense, and I helped establish the Biological Threat Analysis Center that's owned by DIA now by convincing Congress of certain things. So I know these people, and they're not going to experiment on you and your animals. It'll be kept in a laboratory until there's an accident.
So you feel that's not a threat to the local farmers?
Negative.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Until there's an accident.
Well, unless there's an accident.
Well, okay, that's better. It sounded as though you foresaw an accident.
I was being facetious again, as I'm so wont to do in my older age.
All right. We don't have a lot of time left, almost none. Reno, Nevada. Jackson, you're on the air with Major Danes.
Yeah, hi, this is Jackson. I have a question for Major Danes. Is there any particular reason that you moved out of the United States and live in the Ukraine?
Because that's where his girlfriend is, his fiancée. Other than that, Ed, any other reason?
No, I've always wanted an excuse to learn Russian. I speak fluent Chinese, but now I'm learning Russian. Yeah, немного понимаю по-русски.
And on that note, I hope that was okay to say. Ed, as always, thank you, my friend, and good night.
Good night, Art.
Okay, take care. That's it, folks. For me on this night, it was a joy to fill in for George Norrie, and we'll probably be back around the 29th of next month. Good night.